But when facing Li Moying, she didn't even have a sliver of possibility to escape at all. At the instance when she was enveloped by Li Moying's overbearing thunder-attributed domain, she had been locked in as a target, invaded by that invasive presence as her mind went blank and her body totally immovable, only able to stand still and wait for death to descend. This simply was too terrifying. Even though she had escaped death, but just recalling it made Huang Yueli's heart palpitate wildly as sweat kept sprouting. It wasn't only her who was anxious. Li Moying was in fact even more anxious than her. The arm which he hugged Huang Yueli's slender waist kept trembling nonstop. It took quite a while later before he regained his composure, as he stretched out his hand and gently caressed her hair, as though he was afraid that she would disappear. Such carefulness made Huang Yueli's heart quiver. She hurriedly raised her head up, meeting Li Moying's gaze. She thought she would be able to smile and greet him, but the minute she raised his head, he saw Li Moying's deep and painful black eyes. She couldn't bring a smile to her face at all. After some time, a sentence was forced out of her throat. "Li Moying, I'm fine. I've returned." Li Moying said one word and immediately stopped. Huang Yueli heard his gagged tone and instantly widened her eyes because she could tell that Li Moying seemed as though he was about to cry. She hurriedly hugged Li Moying, pouncing herself onto him, as she showed her pure and beautifully face which she had intentionally put on makeup in front of him. "Hey, what do you mean by this? Aren't you happy to see me at all? Give me a smile." "Of course I'm happy. Lier, you're all right. You're really all right? Am I not dreaming about this?" Li Moying locked her tightly as the force in his arm became stronger and strong, as though he was about to break her waist. Huang Yueli originally thought about enduring it, but Li Moying was so agitated that he totally forgot to control his force, and she couldn't take it any further as she gave out a moan. When Li Moying heard her moan, his arm relaxed a little, but didn't totally let her go. Huang Yueli wiggled a little in his embrace in an attempt to struggle free. "You let go first. Woo-woo." Following that, she had yet to finish one sentence before Li Moying moved close to her and pressed his lips onto hers. Li Moying's kiss was very, very passionate and extremely strong, overbearing, resolute, not allowing any rejection. Even though Huang Yueli was in his embrace, she almost fainted due to suffocation, but what he did was only to release her for one breath's time. Just as Huang Yueli rose her head up to take in air, he had once again sealed her lips, once and again, repeatedly, as though there wasn't any stopping it all. After a long, long time later, Huang Yueli already lost track of how much time was lost, only knowing that her brain had already turned into a mess. Other than Li Moying, who was tightly holding on to her, there was nothing left. Eventually, after Li Moying felt that missing corner in his herd had been slightly filled, he finally let her off. By now, Huang Yueli's lips had already turned into a bright red color, as though it was about to drip blood. She lightly pursed her lips. Indeed, it had become numb with no sense of feeling. Huang Yueli secretly called him Beast in her heart as she used her eyes to stare daggers at Li Moying, with the intention to express her fury towards him. You can also listen on. But she herself hadn't noticed that her pair of watery eyes had already become blood-filled due to suffocation and desire. Her two eyes were bright red, like a rabbit, and that furious pressing and anxious look, rather than saying that it posed any threat, might as well say it was filled with an unspeakable temptation. Li Moying saw this, and there was a slight change in his gaze, as he suddenly felt that a certain part of his lower body turning slightly rigid and uncomfortable. But now wasn't the best time to get intimate. Being stared at intently by that pair of deep and penetrating peach blossom eyes, Huang Yueli felt like she was starting to lack oxygen once again, as though she was about to faint. That pair of eyes was simply too beautiful, totally the same as Mu Chengying. The kind of deep gaze which could enter one's soul was something which no one could imitate. Huang Yueli's little hand tugged onto his shirt at his waist and was just about to speak. Suddenly, she heard Li Moying opening his mouth first. "I'm sorry." Huang Yueli went into a blank before she gave a puzzled reply. Sorry, why did this word suddenly pop out? Should it be I miss you so much? However, Li Moying continued speaking. I should have kissed you. I'm only too agitated from seeing you still alive and slightly lost my control. I know I shouldn't do that, and I'll try my best to keep a distance from you. I'm extremely sorry for offending you this time. His voice started to chill slowly. Earlier, he had missed Huang Yueli too much. Furthermore, he thought that he was really in an illusion of a dream. Since he was dreaming, then naturally he wanted to kiss, to hug, and in reality, when he dreamt of Huang Yueli in the nights, he had done even more villainous matters. So, he unhesitatingly kissed her, but as he kissed, he became aware that the leer in front of him was actually real. In the midst of shock and joy, to ensure that the young lady in his embrace really existed, his kiss became even more intense. But now that his rationality had returned to his head, he discovered that he had committed a huge mistake. His Lear, no, she was no longer his. Anyway, Lear already had someone who she liked, and he didn't dare to use the fact that he was a man and the advantage that his cultivation was much higher than hers to coerce her to accept his kiss and touch. Thinking of this, Li Moying's heart crumpled into a burst of twitching pain, but he still loosened the grip on her arm as he stood up. Huang Yueli was originally pressed against the rug on the ground being kissed wildly, and her clothes disoriented, face flushed red. In the end, this man actually just patted his ass and ran away, displaying a regretting past deeds expression, then leaving a word sorry. Wasn't this scene a little too funny? Huang Yueli first went into a short daze, then subsequently grabbing Li Moying's lower hem of his robe as she tugged him hard downwards. Li Moying was still nursing his distress, and he wasn't standing properly, hence he totally didn't expect to be sneaked an attack by Huang Yueli at all. So, just that tug alone made him lost his balance immediately as he fell down onto Huang Yueli. Seeing that he was about to fall onto Huang Yueli, Li Moying finally reacted in time, and at the last moment he stretched out his hand to prop himself up, hovering just above Huang Yueli's body. I'm sorry, I didn't stand properly. Li Moying said that and was just about to get up. Huang Yueli was utterly flustered and exasperated. She might as well use both her hands to hug onto Li Moying's neck, and using force, she flipped over and pressed him below her. You can also listen on. Li Moying was stunned for just that one moment when Huang Yueli had already squeezed herself to his face, and her pointed nose touched against his nose's tip, as that pair of watery large eyes was right in front of his face. Li Moying's breathing became heavy. The young lady's soft body was tightly pressed against his, warm and tempting. This young lass had never been so obedient, doing what she was told, so proactive before. For a moment, Li Moying wanted badly to lock her tightly, pressing her down and then doing what he wanted to do. That desire was extremely strong, as though he had been thinking about it for many years, for a long, long time, which had already set in deep into his soul. His two hands, which were hanging on the ground, clenched into fists as his fingers sunk into his palm, forcing himself to control himself. Because he still clearly remembers the expression and tone when Huang Yueli said she had someone whom she liked. That kind of tender yearning was something which he couldn't hope to have. However, just as his self-control was about to collapse, Huang Yueli suddenly lowered her head and gave him a peck on his face. Her action was light and quick, like a dragonfly touching the surface of the water, when it withdrew back immediately. Li Moying took a couple of breaths' time before he finally reacted. He seemed to have been snuck a kiss by her. Huang Yueli's face was filled with a suspicious red blush. I'm sorry, because you're just too handsome, so I kissed you. Anyway, being kissed by me, you don't lose anything, right? Li Moying was tongue-tied, as he felt that he must be going crazy. Was he in a dream, or had he developed hallucination? His Lear would automatically kiss him, and gave such a bashful smile. Had his soul detachment illness became so serious that the minute it acted up, it actually revealed the dream in his mind, turning it to become so alike as though it was real. Huang Yueli lowered her head to see his dazed look and suddenly felt slightly comedic. She had never thought that the man whom she liked was usually so overbearing and powerful. And he actually had a dazed moment like this. This intense difference made Huang Yuli's heart filled with warmth, because this man only appeared in this way in front of her. For the longest time, he had only shown such difference towards her. The gentleness in his eyes were only for her. Thinking of this, Huang Yuli just wanted to explain the whole truth to him clearly and quickly. They had already wasted so much time, wasting a total of 2 lifetimes, so in future, they must cherish their affinity and stay happy together. But seeing Li Moying still in a daze, Huang Yuli's hand turned itchy as she pinched him on his face, as she was gasping how smooth his skin felt, as she sat up and pulled Li Moying along with her. "Get up. I have something very important to tell you." She used her strength to grab his arm upwards, but after tugging him for some time, he actually didn't budge at all. This man was just too heavy. Li Moying finally felt some actuality as he saw his little fox rolling her eyes back several times at him. He finally remembered to climb up. "Lear, why are you?" He agitatedly grabbed Huang Yuli's shoulders and wanted to speak. "Shut up. Can you listen to me first?" Huang Yuli broke off his words. Li Moying didn't expect to be howled at by her. As he went into a daze again and nodded his head, Huang Yuli pointed her chin. "Like a mighty queen, sit over there and listen to me. Merry Christmas Eve, everyone. Partying face Christmas tree, wrapped gift Christmas tree. You can also listen on." Li Moying was helpless, as he could only listen to her commands, and sat on the chair by the side, as he turned his eyes to look at the young lady's dainty face that was bright like sunlight. He was finally slightly awake. Earlier, the warmth in his embrace was real, especially when the two of them were intensely tangled together, that kind of satisfaction which melted the terror in his heart. Other than Lear herself, there was no one else who could do that. So his Lear had indeed returned, but Li Moying's heart was filled with countless doubts. He just wanted to ask, but was shoved back by Huang Yuli. Helpless, he could only sit there obediently, waiting for his queen to give further instructions. Huang Yuli stood in front of him, as she set out the words clearly. "Li Moying, I like you." Li Moying had finally managed to regain some senses. In the end, the minute Huang Yuli opened her mouth, it seemed like a bolt of lightning, striking him disoriented once again. His thick brows creased slightly, as his penetrative black pupils stared at Huang Yuli for a moment, and his first reaction was actually, Are you all right? Are you sick? Or have you lost your memories?" Huang Yuli was stunned, as she didn't expect that for the first time in her life in confessing to the person she liked, the male lead actually had such a response. She went into a mad rage instantly, as she shot upwards to Li Moying like an arrow, grabbing his collar. "Hey, what do you mean? Didn't you hear me say I like you? You actually asked if I'm sick or lost my memories? Are you getting your facts right? The one who is sick or lost memories is you. Is it because you don't like me anymore, or are you regretting it now? So, you're intentionally acting silly?" I wouldn't dare." Li Moying was unable to give a convincing explanation for self-defense. After being tortured by his violent little fox, he began to reminisce. "I really didn't hear you wrongly? You like me? How is that possible?" A huge, shocking joy arose from his inner heart, as he simply didn't believe in his ears, not believing that what he heard was the truth. To win Lear's heart was something that he had yearned for night and day, but every time he had some hopes raised, but it was broken completely by Huang Yuli once and again. Just as he was completely devastated and was prepared to give up any hopes to silently protect her, his Lear actually said she liked him. Even in his dreams, it wasn't so beautiful. Huang Yuli pouted her lips. "Why is it not possible? You're so handsome and so powerful, and you treat me so well. If I don't like you, who else should I like?" Hearing Huang Yuli's non-stingy praises, Li Moying's lips started to curl upwards, as he couldn't control his smile at all. "Although, what you say is a reality of what everyone knows, but the last time you obviously told me that you already have someone you like, so you cannot like me." Huang Yuli's smile froze, as she embarrassedly replied, about this was actually a mistake. It's all my fault for being too dumb. Of course, you're also very dumb. Her last two sentences were said so softly, as though she was mumbling to herself, so Li Moying didn't hear it clearly. He frowned and asked, "What did you say? What mistake?" "I remember it clearly. You said you liked a person for a long, long time, and he's a ninth-stage realm peerless top expert. And furthermore, he loves you and treats you really well. He's able to let you become the person whom all the young ladies in Soaring Heaven's continent envy." Recalling Huang Yueli's resolute words, Li Moying's heart started to grow in pain silently. You can also listen on. The gaze which he threw onto Huang Yueli started to become estranged. Although he didn't know why Huang Yueli suddenly confessed to him, and he indeed loved her till the end of his life, but he wasn't silly at all. There had been no one at all who would change their character within a short period of time to like another person. For Huang Yueli to say this, there would definitely be a reason, a motive. Actually, Li Moying didn't mind if the girl he liked had any motive, and no matter what Huang Yueli wanted him to do, he would disregard the price or ask for any payback and helped her do what she wanted. But she didn't want to hear that kind of false confession, because he really would treat it as real. He really would believe her. And if in the end, Huang Yueli were to regret once more, this would definitely throw him deep into the abyss, consigned to eternal damnation. Before he met Huang Yueli, Li Moying had already thought of himself as having a heart of stone. There was nothing which he couldn't do, but now he got to admit that he had a fatal weak point, which was this young lady in front of him who could easily make him totally refuted. Seeing Li Moying's face revealing a pained expression, Huang Yueli's heart also started to tremble. She immediately pounced over to hug him. "I'm not lying to you. I really like you. I've always only liked you. But there's really some misunderstanding, and I didn't expect it to turn out like this. Are you willing to listen to my explanation?" Hearing the young lady in his embrace, making a solemn vow, repeatedly emphasizing her feelings, Li Moying's heartbeat started to speed up. Should he look forward to this time? She's really decided to open her heart to him. Li Moying stretched out his hand to hold on to hers, as he replied in a deep voice softly, "All right, I'll listen to you, but you cannot bluff me." Huang Yueli looked at his eyes. "I will not bluff you, but I'm afraid you will not believe in me." Li Moying seemed to have felt her apprehensiveness, as his gaze turned gentle. "As long as you're willing to speak, I'll believe you." In actual fact, Huang Yueli felt that there was a 99% chance that Li Moying would think she's taking nonsense, but at least hearing his pacification, her heart started to quieten down. Huang Yueli sat by his side, as she thought for a moment before she opened her mouth. "This matter needs to start from our past life." Past life? Li Moying had already decided that, no matter what Huang Yueli said, and how ridiculous it was, he insisted on believing the person whom he liked. But even though he had this sort of determination, at the first instance when Huang Yueli opened her mouth, the first sentence made him stunned. Huang Yueli firmly nodded her head as she replied, "Right, previous life. Why are you so shocked? Didn't you said that you will believe me regardless?" "I'm only a little shocked." "All right, do continue." Li Moying was only astonished for a moment when he settled down. Huang Yueli was reminiscing as she spoke softly. "You probably couldn't believe that I still have my past life's memories when I entered this body. But for the first 14 years of my life, my memories had been sealed and had always been very blurry. Until 1 year ago, it was because of one life and death incident where I had suffered provocation, hence recovering my past life's memories, recalling my identity from my past life. If any ordinary person were to hear this, they would probably think she was still sleep-talking. But to a top expert with broad knowledge like Li Moying, he had heard of rumors of practitioners whose souls had reincarnated, so he could still accept this news. He turned and looked at Huang Yueli as he asked curiously, "What is your identity in your past life?" You can also listen on. Huang Yueli raised her eyes as she looked at him, as she spoke out the words distinctly. "Mythical Flame Palace's young palace master Huang Yueli." A clang sound was heard as a ceramic cup, which Li Moying was holding onto, fell onto the ground, shattering into pieces. His eyes widened like full moons. What did you say? Your previous life. W.S. Mythical Flame Palace's young palace master Huang Yueli? Soaring Heaven's Continent's #1 armament master? Huang Yueli nodded. Li Moying felt that his heart wasn't able to accept such a huge shock. Who was Huang Yueli? Even though she had already passed on for more than 15 years, but her reputation still remained through the entire Soaring Heaven's Continent, like thunder. The previous #1 beauty of Soaring Heaven's Continent, #1 armament master, and the strongest among the fire attributed practitioners. Her beauty, as well as her exceptional yet unconventional refining art, was something which no one could mimic even until today. And the tear-jerking relationship she had with the #1 top expert, Mu Chengying. Thinking of this, Li Moying's heart jumped swiftly. But Huang Yueli didn't notice his slight change of expression as she continued listing down examples, trying to convince him of her identity. I know this kind of thing sounds unbelievable, but if you think carefully, you discover many evidences which could prove my identity. Armament refining is such a difficult skill to learn, but I've never had any master, yet easily became an armament master. To the fact that even when I still couldn't cultivate, I could already refine third-grade profound armament. Don't you find it weird? That's because of my previous life's experience, which allowed me to display my potential to the greatest degree. And you also know that I also know how to set up arrays, right? Haven't you ever thought of this? Why is it that at my age, I had such high accomplishments in armament refining and arrays? Most people, even if they started learning while still in their mother's womb, they couldn't possibly be this incredible. That's because these are all things which I've learned in my previous life. But because of my cultivation that I was limited, hence could not display my full power. Furthermore, in my first 14 years, I had always been treated like trash who could not cultivate. But it has only been barely a year. Not only am I not trash, I've also reached 4th-stage realm in a jiffy. Don't you find it ridiculous? All these are because of the cultivation method, which I'm using to train, which were also obtained in my past life's memories. And Huang Yueli added more and more examples, all of which were obvious evidences, just because she was afraid that Li Moying wouldn't believe her, so she made it especially detailed. However, Li Moying only heard the first few bits and had totally believed her saying, because these suspicious points on Huang Yueli was something which he was knew especially well. A strong, intelligent, elegant young lady. While attracting all his attention, she had indeed many suspicious points on her. Li Moying always knew that his Lier had secrets on her, and furthermore, a huge amount of secrets, so all these suspicious points which Huang Yueli mentioned, he had all thought of it previously. But at that moment, Li Moying didn't think of investigating thoroughly because the familiarity towards her came from the deepest depths of his heart, trusting and liking her. Even though those are her secrets, it also made Li Moying felt that she was lovable. Now that Huang Yueli expressed her past life's identity, then those suspicious points had instantly became explainable. In this way, what reason did Li Moying had to not believe her words? However, Li Moying remained silent. You can also listen on, because there was something more important which kept nagging repeatedly in his mind. It was the matter related to Huang Yueli and Mu Chengying. When Huang Yueli's real identity was exposed, the first thing Li Moying thought about was her relationship with her and Mu Chengying. That year, this was the most eye-catching couple in the entire Soaring Heaven's Continent. Every single move they made captured everyone's attention and was the most enviable couple. Every time they appeared, it attracted everyone's attention, and numerous people fell down to worship Huang Yueli. And there were numerous young ladies who had feelings for Li Moying, but right from the start, they only had each other in their eyes. Although Li Moying had never witnessed this grand occasion personally, but just based on the sect's few elders' memories, who had been lucky enough to see them, Li Moying could totally imagine how much this couple was envied by everyone. Once, Li Moying secretly hoped that one day he and Lear would become such a couple as well. In the end, as things were unpredictable, Lear actually turned into Huang Yueli. Recalling what she said previously, the last time when she rejected him did not make any sense now. The person she liked was Mu Chengying, and he indeed was soaring heaven's continent's #1 top expert, someone at a level which he cannot hope to achieve. These words were absolutely correct. Whereas Huang Yueli liked Mu Chengying, wasn't just a matter of 1 or 2 days. Their relationship naturally wasn't something which he, the third party, could supersede. Huang Yueli was talking on when she discovered the man beside her keeping her silence. And finally, she found it curious, so she stopped. Her head tilted to a 45 degrees angle. As she got closer to size him up, surely you're not scared stunned, right? Or you don't believe me. I already said I'm not lying to you. Li Moying then opened his mouth. I know. It didn't lie to me. The minute he opened his mouth, he then realized how hoarse his voice sounded and how uncertain his tone was. When Huang Yueli heard that, she pouted in dissatisfaction. Since you believe me, then why are you still showing me a face? Don't tell me that being the #1 armament master is something which is embarrassing for you? No, there's no such matter. Li Moying took a deep breath as he tried his hardest to maintain his composure. You're so incredible. Of course I'd be very happy, extremely happy. Huang Yueli's eyes were full of disbelief as she stared hard at him. You call this happy? If you're really happy, why don't you show me your smile? Li Moying swept her a glance as he cried out silently. How was he supposed to smile in this kind of situation? But Huang Yueli's little angry face look made his heart melt, so he could only tug an upwards into a curve on his lips. Huang Yueli angrily retorted, This is considered a smile. It's even uglier than crying. Li Moying remained silent for a while, as he couldn't keep up with the pretense, and broke down as he said, Then what do you want me to do? Congratulate you and Mu Chengying a blissful life? Huang Yueli was stunned, as she blinked her eyes and blinked again. That enlarged eyes were simply too lovable, and Li Moying gloomily realized that no matter what, he would always be attracted by this young lady in front of him, even though he knew that the person she really liked was someone else. This was like setting a curse on him. Huang Yueli knew that he was thinking awry, and right after she realized that, the corners of her lips rose upwards as she gave a crafty smile. She intentionally got close to him and said, Then, now that you know that your love rival is the #1 top expert, you don't like me anymore? You can also listen on. Li Moying took a deep breath as he stared intently at her. What do you hope for me to say? You obviously know that. I don't care who I need to go up against, and I could go anything for you. But your heart obviously belongs to someone else, so why must you come and fool around with me? Do you feel a sense of achievement, seeing me being tortured badly like this? Seeing Li Moying's teeth flaring and heartbroken look, Huang Yueli knew that she had gone overboard, as she hurriedly mended the fence after the sheep were lost. She shook her head with all her might. No, I have no intention of fooling with you. My heart indeed belongs to someone, but before she could finish her words, she was stopped by the gloomy Li Moying. Enough. I don't want to hear it anymore. He covered his ears, rejecting to hear more. Actually, he didn't need to listen, no. How loving Huang Yueli and Mu Chengying were that year, the entire soaring heavens continent knew about it. He didn't need to hear the person involved repeat it once again. What enough, listen to me, Huang Yueli stomped her feet as she pounced over in an attempt to pull his hands down. But Li Moying's strength wasn't something which she could resist against, and the both of them were in a deadlock for quite a moment. Huang Yueli's entire person dangled on Li Moying's body, but she still wasn't able to make him listen to her properly. With this, Huang Yueli finally got enraged. She simply used brute force to pull Li Moying's arm, as she got close to his ear and shouted, Do you know what I'm trying to say? Don't tell me you really didn't have any inkling at all, that you are Mu Chengying himself? The both of you are the same person. Li Moying's actions paused for a moment, although he kept covering his ears, but Huang Yueli's shout was extremely loud, so much that even a deaf person was able to hear her. In actual fact, he had never thought about it, but this young lass was so petite, yet still able to make such a sharp, ear-piercing sound. So even though his palms were blocking his ears, he felt that his ears almost went deaf. He subconsciously put down his hand as he spoke in shock. What are you saying? Why is it that I totally cannot understand anything at all? Huang Yueli finally managed to make him calm down, to listen to her. So of course she didn't want to waste any more time, as she hurriedly and anxiously continued talking. I say, you're Mu Chungying is you. All right, stop rebuking me. Just listen to me finish up this, all right? Seeing that Li Moying was going to jump up in shock, Huang Yueli hurriedly pressed on his shoulders, and as she was afraid that he would move around and not listen to her speak, she might as well sit down on Li Moying's thigh, pressed him down, and grabbed his wrists. Li Moying lowered his head to look at her in astonishment, only to discover that Huang Yueli totally didn't notice their ambiguous position and only cared about explaining. It was only after the quarrel we had that day when I discovered this point, and although before that I did have my suspicions, but I had never put any deep thoughts into it. You yourself probably don't know that you have a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes, exactly the same as Mu Chungying. Besides that, the gaze which you cast upon others is exactly the same as well. Honestly speaking, if you were related by blood, it's very normal for your eyes to look the same, but that kind of expression which he gives off, I've never seen it on a second person yet. Perhaps it's just a coincidence. Could you be thinking too much? Li Moying felt that this reason was a little too implausible, as he couldn't help but butt it in. Huang Yueli took a look at him, as she continued, and the tone which you usually speak, plus your actions are very alike. You are also a thunder attribute practitioner, and the habit that both of you have are the same when wielding your sword. You especially like to twist your wrist before you draw out your sword. You can also listen on. Li Moying's mind went blank for a moment. He was taken aback because he indeed had this small habit, but as his speed of striking was usually very fast, even 9th stage realm practitioners might not be able to see it clearly. He had not expected Huang Yueli to have observed him in detail, so much that she even knew about this. Huang Yueli spoke frankly with assurance. Actually, this is an unnecessary move, and it would lower the drawing speed. So if anyone else had thid little action, they would have been rectified by their master or elders. Except for you. I've only seen Mu Chungying done this. The reason for this, I'm guessing you too must be the same, which is your master don't dare to control you. Don't rebuke. You can never win me. Li Moying originally wanted to rebuke, but Huang Yueli had spoken out first, to shove his words back into his mouth. He bore with it for a moment, but still couldn't keep it in, so he opened his mouth and said, This is even more far-fetched. I know my drawing speed is a flaw, but I don't believe that only I and Mu Chungying have this little action. All right, you don't believe. Then, there's... Huang Yueli used her hand to hold up his good-looking face, forcing Li Moying to look at her eyes. The tone and habit which you talk are exactly the same as Mu Chungying in many ways. For example, you lie to call me Lear, little fox. These are something which only you and Mu Chungying would call me. And even the action and feeling when you kiss me, the reaction you give when you're jealous, often makes me subconsciously feel that you're him. That's what you feel only. I'm not Mu Chungying's replacement. Li Moying shouted out in an utterly discomfited manner. Not knowing why, his head felt a burst of terror, as though his entire brain was going to be split in half. Half of it believed in Huang Yueli's words, because if what she said was true, then he would be Lear's official sweetheart, former life's lovers, deep-rooted love, which no one was able to split them apart. But the other half of him was afraid of accepting this. The minute he thought that this might be possible, his brain started to work up in pain, as his heart was empty, with an ominous feeling that something bad would happen. As though, behind the truth, there was something which he wasn't willing to touch. Huang Yueli was speechless to the max, as she didn't expect Li Moying to not believe her, and even thought that he was a replacement. She shouted out loudly, You really want to anger me to death? Do you really not have any memories at all? The things you said when your soul detachment illness acted up, don't you remember a single bit of it at all? Li Moying was stunned. What did I say? When my soul detachment illness acts up, my memories are jumbled up, and I don't know what I do at all. All right, looks like you really don't have any memories. Then I shall remind you. Every time your illness acts up, you'd always say some absurd things, making me feel that I think of Mu Chungying too much, that I'm hallucinating. But the last time when we separated, you said a lot, and all those are what Mu Chungying told me before, exactly the same. If you're not Mu Chungying, may I ask, how do you know what he and I said when we're alone in the room? Were you eavesdropping on us outside our room? Li Moying was tongue-tied. You say it as though it really happened. Surely it's not true, right? Could it be that I really said that? You can also listen on. Rubbish. Why do I need to lie to you on this matter? What advantages would I gain? You really have no recollection at all? Huang Yueli's face was filled with anxiety as she grabbed his arm tightly, her entire body pressing against him, as she stared at Li Moying's eyes while shooting her questions. Li Moying's brows were tightly knotted as his expression turned gloomy, falling into deep thoughts. He had actually believed half of what Huang Yueli said, because she's not the first person to say he would talk nonsense when his soul detachment illness acted up. When he was very young, he had once relayed to him the things which he said when he acted up, which was that he was worried about a young girl to not leave, to stay. At that time, Li Moying had not met Huang Yueli, and he felt that he was a cold-hearted person with a cold attitude. So there was no possibility that he would get tangled with a young lady. So naturally, he snorted disdainfully at Moyi's description. Furthermore, when his illness acted up, his conscience was totally messed up, and in his mind, it would indeed appear some memories which were obviously not related to him, with people whom he had not met appearing, and places which he had not been to. In the past, he had not given any deep thoughts about this, although he did suspect if these were his past life's memories. But eventually he felt that there was no meaning to it. But right now, linking it to what Huang Yueli had said, putting all these together, it seemed that the truth was about to be born. His eyebrows slowly relaxed, and Huang Yueli noticed this as she urgently added on, "Actually, I always had a guess which is your soul detachment illness had something to do with your past life. I heard Brother He mentioned this before, that your soul detachment illness was not something which you had since you were born, but it only happened when you were around 6 years old. Am I correct?" Li Moying nodded. "That's right, it indeed is this case. When I was very young, I was extremely weak and often had fainting spells in the middle of the night, but never had soul detachment illness. Ever since I almost died in the snow when I was 6, after Master found me and brought me back to Celestial Light Sect, my body suddenly became stronger and my cultivation talent started to appear, but for no obvious reason, I've also developed soul detachment illness." Huang Yueli said, "So, the change in your life was 14 years ago, and 14 years ago was the year when I was attacked in the Northern Ice Fields and had no choice but to self-explode. Later on, I was reborn in this current body, whereas Mu Ching was said to have shut himself within Blue Profound Sect, going into rigid, closed cultivation. To this, what do you think?" Li Moying's face was gloomy. "What can I possibly think?" "Mu Ching had deep sentiments towards you?" Huang Yueli went into a daze, as she apparently didn't expect him to sprout out such a sour statement. But immediately she flew into a rage out of humiliation as she stretched out her fair little hand and pinched Li Moying's back of the hand hard. "What are you talking about? Can you stop flying into a jealous rage, being jealous of yourself? Do you know how laughable it is? I'm talking to you about something proper. Don't you feel that everything which happened 14 years ago is just too coincidental? Could it be that this body's original soul had perished in the snowy night, and your spirit obtained this body instead? What joke are you cracking?" Li Moying apparently could not accept this, saying, "What you want to say is, I'm actually not me, but a lonely soul dominating this body. And this ghost even forgot my own name, what I did, and what kind of identity I had. Then what exactly am I?" Li Moying's expression was extremely ugly. You can also listen on. Knowing that he actually wasn't his own self, no one would feel good about it. At this moment, Li Moying felt that if what Huang Yueli said was true, then wouldn't his entire life be a huge joke? After living for 20 years, yet he didn't even know who he was, and furthermore, to not even be able to recall it till this day, the part of his most important memories. Huang Yueli stretched out her hand. She caressed it gently on his handsome face. Her slender fingers slightly increased in force around his eyebrows, trying to placate his inner heart's melancholy. But she lowered her voice as she continued. But you always remembered who was the woman who you like. Li Moying's entire body quivered, like he was struck by lightning. Huang Yueli's lips curled into a sweet smile, as her watery big eyes were flooded with feelings. Even if you forgot everything, you still remembered that you like me, isn't it? Even though you have no memories and was not able to recognize me, you still like me so much. You dare say it's not love at first sight for you? You dare say, from the first time you met me, it already felt as though we knew one another for a long, long time? Li Moying's thoughts were already swirling and messy into a bundle, as numerous pieces of memories and consciousness started to fly around, causing his head to be in extreme pain. But right before him was a pair of eyes so bright and so beautiful, which was exactly the same as all his memories and the dream which he kept seeing at night. Nothing had changed from the past. Lear, he spoke haltingly in a low voice, and his voice sounded like it was choking. He grabbed Huang Yueli's hand and clasped their 10 fingers together as it grew tighter and tighter. Huang Yueli raised her head to look at him, and in an instant she was taken in by that pitch-black, night-like pair of pupils, totally unable to move away her eyes. The two of them leaned in closer and closer. Just as their lips were about to touch each other, Li Moying suddenly gave out a low moan, and subsequently he shoved Huang Yueli aside as he grabbed his head and bent down. Huang Yueli was shoved by him and fell down from his thigh, almost falling flat on the ground. She finally managed to stabilize herself when she heard Li Moying's groans of pain. Moying, what's the matter? Huang Yueli's eyes grew large as she rushed over. Li Moying suddenly lifted his head, and in that pitch-black eyes, glints of indigo-blue rays could be seen, as though lightning power were about to gush out from his body. Huang Yueli was stunned for a moment, when she suddenly recalled that today was full moon's night, and Li Moying, from his looks, could it be that his soul detachment illness was about to act up? In actual fact, Li Moying was indeed on the verge of flaring up. When he returned to his courtyard earlier, there were already signs of flaring up. Originally, when he saw Huang Yueli by his side, feeling her presence, that raging energy in his body gradually started to subside, and if there weren't any accidents, today would go by safely. But unfortunately, Huang Yueli told him a large deal of their past lives' memories. Li Moying let her explain and tried hard not to recall his past life's memories, but no matter how hard he tried, there were only a few pieces of memories floating around, and one by one it flashed past. When he tried to look carefully at it, he then realized that there was nothing at all. He became more and more flustered, not accepting the fact that he had lost his memories, so he tried even harder to recall. But the more he recalled, the more painful his head became, as though it was about to explode. Finally, he seemed to almost recall something. You can also listen on. For that one instance, he seemed to have seen Huang Yueli in her past life, wearing a light purple gold lining flowing dress, the figure dancing under that sakura tree, seeing her dressed in red, fearless embrace, with a zither in her hands, causing a fire sea which covered the earth and skies, engulfing the entire world. Following that, the image in front of him changed. He saw Huang Yueli being surrounded and attacked on the northern ice fields, and although she was already seriously injured, but her spine remained straight, and on that peerlessly beautiful face, the usual aloof and arrogant expression remained. She said, Huang Yueli's life, is never given by anyone else. The flame was ablaze, as an earth-shattering explosion was heard, shaking the entire ice field. Amid the blaring flame, that young lady's sweet smile slowly dispersed. Li Moying's head started to be in more pain, so much that he was unable to differentiate if what he saw was reality or hallucination. He only felt the pain in his heart about to explode, and he knew he needed more energy, a much more powerful energy, enough to twist the entire thing around, an energy strong enough to make his beloved come back to life. Because of that, even if it required him to sell his soul, even if he had to fall into hell, it didn't matter to him at all. Furthermore, what on earth did he do? Li Moying's head suddenly became blank. He couldn't recall anything and couldn't control anything, leaving only that powerful thunder-attributed energy which he had no way to suppress, threading through all the arteries in his body, making him felt that he was filled with energy enough to destroy the entire world. Anyway, his Lier was no longer around, so even if he made this world accompany her in death, what did it matter? Li Moying laughed uncontrollably, totally not sensing anything. But from an outsider's view, his laugh was very weird, very horrifying, and very terrifying. He took a few steps outwards immediately, and with a wave of his right hand, the surrounding thunder-attributed energy instantly gathered in his palm. Just as he was about to destroy the surroundings, suddenly, a familiar sweet voice rang by the side of his ear. "Li Moying, what are you doing? Stop, quickly stop." Li Moying's head turned dizzy again. This voice was so familiar that it made his heart ache. Who was this? No, he still couldn't recall. Who cares? Who cared whoever it was? Anyway, he wanted everyone to accompany her in death. But after that voice cried out a few times, it stopped, and after that, a figure came flying towards him. Li Moying subconsciously wanted to strike. There was someone who dared to come near him at this kind of timing. He had no hesitation to strike that person in a coal. But this time his arm seemed as though it was filled with lead, unable to stretch out no matter what. Not right, this wasn't right. What on earth was not right? He couldn't tell clearly, only feeling that his head was in more and more pain. Just as he was hesitating, that warm body had already flew into his embrace, as the young lady's voice rang again. "Li Moying, clear up your mind. Are you forcing me? Don't you dare say, I'm harassing you later." Harass? What harassment? Not waiting for Li Moying's messy memories to come out with a solution, something soft had already landed on his lips. The sweet presence instantly filled his breathing. That familiar feeling miraculously pacified his anxious and unsettled heart, as though the treasure which he had lost had once again returned to his embrace. You can also listen on. That feeling where he found something which he lost made him totally relaxed. Huang Yueli kissed him hard, because every time she pacified Li Moying, he would always kiss her with force, so she guessed that only using force to kiss him would be of use. However, this round, she had only nibbled 2 mouthfuls on Li Moying's lips when she heard Li Moying gave out a low moan. Following that, the man's strong arm wrapped around her slender waist and took her entire slender body into his embrace as he adjusted their positions, and therefore, he turned from guest to the host as he started to kiss her instead. This kiss was unexpectedly lingering and gentle. Li Moying patiently kissed her, as though he was kissing an exquisite treasure, as though he was afraid that just using a little more strength would shatter her to bits. This kiss made Huang Yueli totally drunk initially, but after a while, she felt slightly dissatisfied. This man was so gentle today, but she liked his usual overbearing stance. What's the matter with him today? Huang Yueli gave a dissatisfied humph as she grabbed Li Moying's collar and bluntly bit his lips. Li Moying's body turned stiff for a moment, but subsequently he seemed to be like a lion which had been awoken as he pounced towards his own prey. He lifted Huang Yueli up and with quiet steps left the storage room, using 1 feet to kick open the door to the next room and threw her onto the bed. Huang Yueli was seeing stars from the throw, and she just managed to steady herself as she hurriedly used her arm to prop herself up as she turned back to take a look. "Moying, though, are you okay already, right?" Before she could complete her words of concern, Huang Yueli's eyes widened like full moons, with a shocked expression, as she started to stutter while talking, because right in front of her was an image of a handsome man coming out of the bath. In the darkness, under the weak moonlight, she saw Li Moying already pulling away the hook off his collar, revealing an exquisitely beautiful skin and collarbone, and that smooth yet energetic lines, which made Huang Yueli subconsciously swallowing her saliva. But she realized very quickly that this wasn't the time for admiration. She hurriedly spoke out, "Moying, don't be so agitated that... I'm asking you a question. Is your headache better or not?" Li Moying didn't reply to her, but stretched his hand downwards as he slowly untied his waist belt. The waist belt was casually thrown onto the ground, and Li Moying's shirt was wide open, displaying his perfect figure right in front of Huang Yueli's eyes. The minute Huang Yueli's eyes fell on his body, she instantly could not shift it aside. She was still stammering as she asked, "No, don't. First answer my question." That gaze looked as though she couldn't stop herself from pouncing over to feel him all over. Li Moying slowly walked to the front of the bed, and taking a stride, he climbed onto the bed as he suspended above Huang Yueli. Every time he moved forward, Huang Yueli would move backward, try to avoid him, but Li Moying kept getting closer. Not too long later, Huang Yueli's back pressed against the bed sheet, as she was entirely pressed down under him. A scorching man's breath blew against her face. That familiar and pleasant scent made Huang Yueli dizzy, totally unable to find her will. Li Moying gave a low laugh, as his mellow voice made one drunk. When he bent down and kissed her lips once again, Huang Yueli felt as though she was going to be bewitched till she fainted. You can also listen on. While she was enjoying Li Moying's kiss, she was also attempting to struggle. "Li Moying, wait a while. Why must I wait? I want to kiss you, touch you, to feel your existence. So will you be obedient and listen? Didn't you say that you liked me?" After Li Moying rebuked her, he bluntly peeled open Huang Yueli's hook in front of her chest, and the minute that fair slender neck was exposed, Li Moying's glare became deep. He lowered his head. "Ah!" Huang Yueli gasped loudly. Li Moying actually bit her on her neck, leaving visible teeth marks. You, let go of me." Huang Yueli tried her best to struggle and to push him aside, but Li Moying seemed as though he was bent on leaving a mark on her body. Not only did he not let go, he even continued sucking on the area where his teeth marks were, insistent on nibbling an inerasable mark. The more she struggled, the tighter Li Moying hugged. Huang Yueli was crying without tears. Actually, she didn't mind having a relationship with Li Moying, although they haven't officially wedded, but they had already been through 2 lifetimes torture, and in each other's heart, they were closer than any ordinary couple. But he had to at least let her be sure if he was conscious or not. Furthermore, what kind of timing was this? Li Moying had just relapsed, and even if he managed to suppress it down, but won't his energy be depleted? Just as Huang Yueli had no other ideas, she heard a shuffle of moving feet coming from the corridor. Where's he? Where's Master gone to? He's not in the study, nor is he in the cultivation room. Where on earth has he gone to? Has he already ran out? Then we're in trouble. Could Master be going on a killing spree again? What situation is this? Shao-Chi, didn't you saw Third Miss had already returned safety and is waiting for Master in the courtyard? Why had Master suddenly acted up? That's right. Have you seen the wrong person? Or have the both of them starting quarreling again? Really, that's enough. They're not even kids. They obviously love each other to death. Why must they keep arguing every day? AI, stop talking about these. Beware that Master hears you and skins you alive. Quickly find them. Master's illness is acting up, and Third Miss has gone missing. Could she have been killed by Master while he's angry? At the entrance, a pile of guards' discussions could be heard. When he heard that Huang Yueli had returned, they were already assured, feeling that throwing Third Miss to their master would give them a peace of mind. So all of them ran out to have a drink. However, just as they were enjoying themselves, suddenly they saw lightning flashes and thunder rolls coming from the rear mountain. When everyone hurriedly ran out to take a look, they discovered that Li Moying appeared on the top of the courtyard, and a streak of terrifying lightning, and the surrounding 4 areas turned into a lightning zone, as several miles within the vicinity were filled with thunder attributed profound energy, focused on the little courtyard as it speedily gathered together. The shadow guards were experienced people, and they only needed one look when they knew things were in bad shape. This was the signs of Lemoying's soul detachment illness flaring up, and if this continued, in no time, Lemoying was going to rush out and go on a killing spree. All of them had no time to consider why, while Lemoying and Huang Yueli were together. His illness was going to act up any moment, and they could only use all their might to run forward in desperation, praying at the same time that nothing would happen. No matter if it was Lemoying or Huang Yueli, nothing would happen to the both of them. You can also listen on. Otherwise, when Lemoying awoke the next morning, that would really be doomsday. Shadow guards were burning with anxiety as they rushed into the courtyard, only to discover that the lightning had quelled down and the surrounding energy waves had also turned normal. But all of them were still worried, so they decided to enter the premise to witness that Lemoying was safe and sound. The few of them searched the few outer rooms to find that it was empty, so they walked towards the bedroom towards the end of the corridor. Huang Yueli's ears pricked up as she listened to the shadow guards' voices outside, and her ears turned so red that smoke was almost emitted. She used a lot of force to push Lemoying's shoulder, trying her best to push him aside. If the shadow guard were to bump into this, then she would be too embarrassed to see anyone. However, Lemoying was like a heavy, huge mountain, as he steadily pressed against her, not budging at all, his head still hanging on her neck, planting strawberries. Lemoying, get up right now, do you hear me? Huang Yueli was already fuming with rage. What kind of timing was this? What was Lemoying thinking about? Did the man only use his lower body to think? She stretched out his hand, pulling Lemoying's ear. Just at this moment, a pitter-patter of footsteps, shuffling sound was heard closing in. How about the bedroom? Have you checked the bedroom yet? The door's open. Let me take a look. There seems to be someone. A dash. Gusts of screeching sounds which were about to pierce through the roof, and Huang Yueli's expression turned green instantly. Lemoying, however, seemed as though he had just regained his senses as his face revealed an astonishing look. But his reaction was so fast, which no ordinary man could imagine. Just within an instant, he moved right in front of Huang Yueli, as he used the blanket and wrapped her up tightly, without a single bit of indecent exposure. Thereafter, he turned around and faced the shadow guards at the entrance. When the shadow guards dashed into the room, what they saw was actually their master with a dissatisfied look sitting right in front of the bed, and on the bed was a bundle of extremely suspicious lump. He. Master, you're all right? Master, we were just too worried about you. I did not expect that you're still busy, that we're very sorry to have disturbed you. And third, miss, that absence makes the heart fonder. We will scram tight now. Please don't mind us, continue. When Huang Yueli heard the shadow guard conversation, she had already guessed that they probably were laughing to death right now. It's just too embarrassing, and it's all Lemoying's fault. She buried her head into the pillow, pretending that she was an ostrich, not moving an inch. After some time, a large hand touched her face as Lemoying's smiling voice was heard. Lier, come out and breathe some air. You will suffocate if you continue in this way. Huang Yueli continued to act dead, not moving at all. Lemoying laughed. They've already left, and I've already given them a severe warning. Then in future, if the both of us are together, then not to enter, even if the room collapses. Ugh, do you want your face or not? Huang Yueli heard that, and instantly her rage got to her, as she turned around and stared angrily at Lemoying. Lemoying's vision slipped downwards, as it laid on her neck, which was filled with strawberries, and his lips curled upwards, revealing a pure man's satisfied smile. All right, I'm in the wrong. I'm shameless. He readily accepted her view, and he automatically admitted his mistake. Anyway, the strawberries had already been planted. You can also listen on. As long as he could declare his sovereignty, What did getting scolded meant? Huang Yueli was rather speechless, as she stared at him angrily for quite some time. But Li Moying used that pair of peach blossom eyes to seduce her while looking at her. His eyes were filled with tenderness, so she was unable to blow up her anger at all. "All right, Lier, don't be angry anymore." Li Moying cried out miserably as he saw his little fox lifting her head, revealing her two little fangs, smiling at him. He touched his own neck and could feel that area being bitten by her in revenge. And furthermore, that bite was very deep, as it had already started to bleed. Your sharp and pointed teeth are indeed like a little fox." He shook his head helplessly, but his tone was filled with affection. Huang Yueli was finally satisfied as she gave a cold harumph in a pampered manner. "Humph, this is already letting you off easy. Who asked you to bully me? Why would I dare to bully you? You don't bully me. I'd already be thanking God. Of course, if you insist on bullying, you can also do as you wish. As long as you are willing to stay by my side, I'd already be satisfied." Li Moying sighed softly as he laid down beside her, hugging her and the blanket into his embrace. Huang Yueli naturally leaned towards him, and she put her head on his shoulder like a pillow, thereafter staring at his handsome face. "So that means you believe what I said?" Li Moying lowered his eyes slightly, and with a deep voice he replied, "Believe." Huang Yueli pouted her lips unhappily. "Why did you hesitate before answering me? Do you believe me or not?" Li Moying lowered his head as he looked at her curious big eyes, replying helplessly, "Why would I not believe in whatever you say? Furthermore, those evidence which you had stated, I have no way of rebuking. But this really make one feel surprised? I myself don't have any memories at all, so can't you just let me get used to it first?" Huang Yueli replied, "What's so to get used to? Are you not used to the truth about having a fiancé? Oh, right, forgot to tell you in our previous lives, before something happened to me in the northern ice fields, I'd already agreed to marry you. So no matter what, you've got a good deal, eh?" When Li Moying heard that, he simply couldn't help but laugh out loud. "I say, Lier, aren't you a little unreserved? Are you worried that I'd not marry you? You dare." Huang Yueli was wrapped up in the blanket, like a caterpillar, and originally her movements were already very inconvenient, but she still kicked him with all her might in the blanket. Li Moying say her grimace from the anger, as he immediately admitted defeat. All right, anyway, it's all my fault. Whatever my wifey says is all correct. Haven't we gotten engaged long ago? You're the one who refused to admit it, whereas I cannot hope for it to be true. But we can't get married right now." Huang Yueli went blank for a moment. Why? She had thought that Li Moying would be very impatient, wanted to take her under his wing. Li Moying replied, "I'd better recall all my past life's memories before officially getting married, otherwise I would feel—" Huang Yueli pouted her lips. Feel what? She actually had a premonition on what the man was trying to say. Indeed, Li Moying's penetrative black eyes swept past her face as he lowered his voice. "I'd feel that you're looking at another man through me. To tell the truth, or if it wasn't for the fact that I wasn't your past life's lover, will you ever like me?" Huang Yueli couldn't help but roll her eyes. "Aren't you a little too bored? Being jealous of yourself? You can also listen on." Li Moying looked at her expression and was incredibly fond of it. His fingers gently curled around a lock of her silky hair as he revolved it around his fingertips, playing with it. Huang Yueli shot him a glance and didn't have any expression, laying in his embrace like a kitty cat which was about to fall asleep. To be able to stay like this, holding Huang Yueli into his embrace, speaking softly to her, whereas Huang Yueli obediently allowed him to hug her without any resistance. To Li Moying, this was an image which he had always been dreaming of. At this moment, even if he was to die, he would also be willing. But there was still a sliver of uncertainty in his heart, because the change in Huang Yueli's attitude was simply too fast. Right before that, he had already confessed numerous times, but were mercilessly rejected by her. Now that Huang Yueli deemed that his past life was Mu Chengying, so she let down all her guard and wholeheartedly devoted herself into his embrace. If he still had all of Mu Chengying's memories, then he would be very, extremely, insanely happy. But, unfortunately, he couldn't recall anything at all. So, no matter how much evidences Huang Yueli provided, even he himself could also faintly felt the similarities between himself and Mu Qingying. But those just made him feel too unfamiliar. To the current him, Mu Qingying was just another person. He wasn't very certain that after this lifetime, could he really be the same as before? He already had a different person's experience, cultivation, and identity, but were still far away from then. So, would Huang Yueli really still like him as much as before? Perhaps, after some time, when they were together, Huang Yueli would discover that things were there, but he was no longer the same, not the original him. By then, would she be extremely disappointed? Li Moying kept silent, and Huang Yueli finally could not endure it further as she raised her head and stared at him. Why are you not talking? Is it because you still don't believe me? Li Moying immediately shook his head. No. Why would I not believe you? You will. Huang Yueli clenched her teeth as she spat out in ridicule. You still feel that you're not Mu Qingying. I'm telling you, this kind of secretly thinking too much and anyhow being jealous, then subsequently stuffing it in your heart, and then telling me that there's nothing. This kind of behavior is exactly the same as in the past. In their past lives, she and Mu Qingying often got together and separated and often quarreled. That wasn't totally her fault only, Mu Qingying was basically a huge vinegar pail, and later on he even started to let his imagination run wild, but refused to ask her personally because of his pampered and arrogant attitude. This time, she made sure to have learnt from that, to crush the sapling of such horrendous behavior. Li Moying instantly was rendered speechless. He indeed did not have his past life's memories, but seeing his little fox acting in such a flustered and exasperated manner, he sensed a familiar feeling, as though from a long time ago they had always been getting along in this way. Huang Yueli noticed that he still kept silent, so she went close to his face and explained with a pampered expression, I really don't understand why you like to be jealous of your own self. I'm not even treating you as the replacement for your past life. Actually, after meeting you in this life, I've always liked you. All right, indeed I've been rejecting you, but that was because I felt I was very strange. Why is it that I already had someone who I liked in my heart, but still moved by you? I felt that I was especially fickle, whereas you had no memories at all, making me confused for the longest time yet. You can also listen on. Seeing Huang Yueli's melancholic look, Li Moying's mood actually uncontrollably lightened up. So, while he was being trapped by feelings, Huang Yueli wasn't totally outside the box, not totally unmoved. Huang Yueli stretched out her hand from the blanket as she poked his chest. Hey, are you listening to me or not? Li Moying finally couldn't help but laughed out. I heard you. Huang Yueli got into a rage. Laugh, what are you laughing at? I've confessed to you so many times today. How about you? Don't you need to express anything to me? Li Moying then realized that his little fox was feeling a loss. But as she today had indeed been out of his expectations, to be so frank, so bold. He had always thought that his lure was those especially pampered and arrogant type of girl. So even if she loved him to death, she would not say it out. Huang Yueli was so angry that she flipped on the other side, but her waist was held on by a strong and powerful arm as she was turned back to the man's side. The man's deep, mellow, and sexy voice rang beside her ear. You obviously know my feelings for you. Before he could finish his words, his scorching thin lips had already covered hers, as entangling warm kiss drowned her. Huang Yueli's head instantly became dizzy, while she was still spitting with ridicule in her heart. Foul. Didn't he say to confess? Actually used his kiss to get past the stage. The second day morning, dawn had just broke. Two suspicious figures appeared from the little path as they gazed towards Li Moying's courtyard from afar. These two people were Fatty Wang and Administrator Chen. They both bore an excited expression, as a complacent smile was hanging on their lips. Has that little slut really gone to young sect master's courtyard yesterday? Uncle, did you see it for yourself? Isn't that so? I've even waited at the entrance for a long time and saw young sect master returning with my own eyes. Even after young sect master entered his residence, that little slut still didn't come out, so she must have stayed inside. Surely not right? Didn't they say that young sect master stayed on at sect master's place to discuss matters and only returned back very late? That wretched lass actually didn't come out at all? I was still worried that she might have left early. Fatty Wong said in disbelief. Administrator Chun was fiddling with his beard, as his face was filled with a malicious smile. Hee, I was originally very worried, so I guarded the entrance, just because I was afraid that she would escape and find a reason to chase her back, but that little lass really didn't come out. From what I think, she must have felt that she had the chance to get close to young sect master, probably even to climb up young sect master's bed, flying up the branches to turn into a phoenix. Really? Did she really think like that? Didn't she bother to see her own reflection? Eldest young miss has such peerless beauty, had to also woo young sect master for so many years before she could barely enter young sect master's eye. With her looks, young sect master would probably not even take a look at her, right? Fatty Wong laughed so much that he couldn't stand straight. That's for sure. If young sect master would take interest in her, I'd eat sh*t right here. Anyway, if she were to seduce young sect master automatically, then that would suit our intentions just fine. We don't even need to scheme her, and she would be torn into two halves by young sect master. How many female disciples had tried to seduce young sect master in the past? Which one of them didn't end up miserably? Administrator Chin replied, brimming with confidence. Fatty Wong also quipped, "That's right. If young sect master were really to even take a look at her, I'd also eat sh*t. Probably young sect master is going to come out really soon, so I'll be waiting here to see how miserable she is." You can also listen on. The two of them were discussing while joyful satisfaction, as their eyes opened wide, staring at Li Moying's courtyard's main door without blinking. They had not discovered that right behind them, a group of shadow guards had already heard their conversation loud and clear. Although they had been driven away by Li Moying yesterday, but it was the shadow guard responsibility to protect their master, so naturally they couldn't possibly go too far away, so they rotated duties among themselves, and all of them were staying close by. Only no one dared to go near. On one hand was because they were afraid of being Li Moying's eyesore, while on the other hand, as single dogs, they were afraid that they'd be blinded by the display of the shining love. But the situation around the courtyard surroundings could not escape their eyes. Early morning, when Fatty Wong and Administrator Chen appeared, it had already attracted the shadow guard's attention. But because they were wearing Celestial Light Sect's disciple and administrator uniform, so the shadow guards weren't sure what they were there for. So in the end, they just following right behind them, not making a single noise. Whoever knew, they actually heard such a conversation which made one vomit blood. The few shadow guards exchanged glances as they could see a playful expression on one another's face. Where did these hilariously stupid clowns come from to smear third miss? Obviously, they were here to create humor. Did their eyes grow on there? But they actually said third miss looked ugly, and young sect master wouldn't take interest in her? Not to mention that third miss didn't agree. Young sect master would even possibly not agree. Moer walked to the two people's back as he coughed heavily. Cough, cough. The duo still hadn't discovered it, and was still discussing as they whispered to each other's ear. Why have that wretched lass not come out yet? Has she really been struck by young sect master? How could that be possible? If you're young sect master, would you hide a dead corpse in your courtyard? He would definitely throw it out. Looks like that wretched lass isn't dead yet. How will that do? I have looked forward to this for a long time. Although not dead, then she must have been thrown into the water prison. I heard that once you enter the water prison, it's no different from being sentenced to death. Even if you come out, your cultivation will take a huge hit. Cough, 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 cough. Moer tried his best to cough, but the two of them were too excited and totally didn't notice him. The other shadow guards behind laughed so much that they had stitches on their sides, and even casted Moer an extremely disdainful gaze. Moer's lips twitched, feeling that his reputation as second brother was going to fall. So he hurriedly slapped Fatty Wong's shoulder. "Oh my God! Who dares to hit me?" Fatty Wong jumped up as he cried out in anger. "Didn't you see Sir Fatty here is talking to someone? You don't even watch where you're walking. Why did you walk to my side? Are you blind?" Mo Air's eyebrows rose. "You don't know who I am? So what if I hit you? You're here wandering around young sect master's courtyard so early in the morning. Obviously you're up to no good. Speak. Are you a spy sent by the Green Cloud sect? Don't need to know who you are? What do you think you do for a living?" "I'm telling you, I'm Elder Wong's." Fatty Wong was there boasting when Administrator Chun turned his head around and was scared till he broke out in sweat as he hurriedly tried to wrest Fatty Wong's shirt from behind, asking him to shut his gap. Fatty Wong didn't understand why he did that as he turned around. "Uncle, what are you trying to do? Why are you tugging my shirt?" Administrator Chin made different signs with his eyes at him for quite some time, but Fatty Wong still didn't come to his senses. Mo Air gave a cold harumph. "Continue speaking. Why have you stopped? Who are you to Elder Wong?" Fatty Wong wanted to continue when Administrator Chin urgently pounced over, using his might to cover his mouth. "You can also listen on." Fatty Wong's eyes opened wide as he tried his best to speak. Administrator Chin's forehead was dripping with sweat as he squeezed out 2 words from him between his teeth. "Shut up." He had not discovered in the past that this nephew of his could be so dumb, and now he was going to cause him to get into trouble. Administrator Chun, as Celestial Light Sect's administrator, held some power, and he had seen Li Moying's shadow guards several times. Even if he didn't recognize their faces, but when he saw the symbolic dressing on them, he could still easily recognize Mo Air's identity. Young Sect Master's most trusted shadow guard. Don't think they only bore the status of protectors, but in Celestial Light Sect, as compared to the elders, they were someone who one couldn't offend. All because they could meet young Sect Mater daily. Moreover, he and Fatty Wong appearing here, and were caught red-handed by the shadow guards, was originally something which easily caused others to be suspicious. Unfortunately, Fatty Wong still had no inkling, and even dared to berate young Sect Master shadow guards. Administrator Chun was so frightened that his soul almost left his body, as he hurriedly bowed down 90 degrees to Mo Air to apologize. "This Sir Shadow Guard, we're really sorry. We only took the wrong path, and we don't mean to be disrespectful to young Sect Master. We will leave immediately, right now." Saying that, he used his might to tug Fatty Wong as he tried to pass by Mo Air. However, Mo Air took a step to the side, coincidentally blocking their way. "Wait, took a wrong path? Such a funny joke. Can you say it once again? I can tell that you're wearing the administrator's uniform. So no matter how, you're also one of the older people in Celestial Light Sect. Would you not know that the west region of the rear mountain is young Sect Master's turf? Try to use the reason of taking the wrong path to deceive me? Do you think I'm an idiot?" This Administrator Chin's cold sweat started to drip, as his heart was extremely flustered. Earlier, when Li Moying was not in the sect, this courtyard surroundings were guarded by ordinary guards, and not shadow guards, so even if he stood far away to keep watch, nothing would happen. Like that last time when he sent Huang Yueli over, he wasn't obstructed by anyone at all. This led to Administrator Chun overlooking the existence of the shadow guards, thinking that it was still the same as previous days ago. After they were caught, did he suddenly regain his response? Momentarily, he didn't know what to say. If young Sect Master were to find out that he had been secretly spying on his whereabouts, then he would not be allowed to live. Everyone said young Sect Master's temper isn't very good recently, so no one dared to offend him. Administrator Chun was frightened out of his guts, but Fatty Wong still didn't know the seriousness of this matter. When he heard that the person in front was Li Moying's shadow guard, he immediately became excited as he pushed Administrator Chun aside and rushed the Mo Air. "Sir Shadow Guard, your young Sect Master, Sir Shadow Guard. My uncle and I are here today to expose a female disciple with treacherous intent." Mo Air had heard their conversation earlier and immediately guessed what he wanted to say. He creased his brows slightly. "Oh, A female disciple with treacherous intent? Fatty Wong replied, yes, that female disciple is called Yi Xiao. She was originally this year's newly advanced outer disciple, and had been allocated to young sect master's courtyard to do cleaning factotum. But the minute she heard that she could come to young sect master's courtyard, that shameless woman actually had dirty thoughts, thinking of seducing young sect master. Yesterday, she obviously knew that young sect master would return, so she intentionally dressed herself up and hid herself in the courtyard, probably hoping to climb onto young sect master's bed. I'm worried that young sect master would be entrapped by the vixen, so we intentionally came over to report this. You can also listen on. Mo Air was so suffocated that he almost died, as his mouth didn't dare to open, just in case he burst out in laughter. This really was the funniest joke which he had heard this entire year. If Third Miss were to seduce Master, then Master would probably be mad with joy. He would probably lie flat, allowing her to tease him. Wasn't this equivalent to falling into the vixen's scheme? Fatty Wong saw his taut expression, and he mistook it, thinking that Mo Air heard about the shameless person, so he was so angry that he was going mad. Mo Chi had also walked over from his back, and putting on a straight face as he said, "That's right, second brother. Yesterday night, I saw a suspicious female disciple appearing in Master's courtyard. It seemed that she really climbed on a Master's bed. What should we do?" Fatty Wong's heart was filled with joy, as he didn't expect this wretched lass to invite her own death, so actually really do such a thing. This simply was heavens helping him. Fatty Wong urgently added, Right, this, sir, the person whom you have seen is definitely Yi Xiao. Who is the shameless little slut who I was talking about? Will both sir here please use your penetrating judgment? This disciple here is absolutely worried for young sect master, so I risk my life to come here. I hope young sect master will not fall into that wretched slut's trap. Mo Air and Mo Chi exchanged glances as they gave an amiable smile. This, younger brother Wong, the matter which you said, we know about it already. Thank you for specially coming over to inform us. We'd not expect that such a farce to happen in our sect. This cannot be overlooked. You and your uncle will now follow us to meet young sect master and explain the matter to him. Hearing that, Fatty Wong's joy was displayed on his face. This was really running into good luck to actually have the chance to meet young sect master personally and even render such outstanding service. In future, he will be able to hug young sect master's thigh. He hurriedly thanked Mo Air 1,000 times, just short of kneeling down to kowtow to him. Even Administrator Chun was fooled by Mo Air and all, as he saw his nephew in new light. Usually he thought he was not steady while doing stuff, and now suddenly he changed according to the situation, that even those two Sir Shadow Guards were willing to guide him along. The both of them were overjoyed as they diligently followed behind Mo Air and the others, and hadn't noticed that the few Shadow Guards were behind them, bore an expression which looked as though they were looking forward to watching a good show. Just at this moment, a creak sound was heard, and Li Moying's courtyard's door suddenly opened. When Huang Yueli awoke in the morning, the sky had already turned bright. By her side, Li Moying laid silently, with his eyes tightly shut. Apparently he had not woken up yet, and the blanket which was originally wrapped around her had unknowingly been drawn out, and were now covering both of them. Underneath the blanket, their bodies intertwined, her entire body leaned on Li Moying's body, and she could distinctly feel Li Moying's well-built muscle lines and that warm and supple skin. Huang Yueli's face blushed a shade of red as she gently pushed him aside, with the intention to get up. But Li Moying suddenly tightened his rein, pulling her back. Huang Yueli fell onto him once again and went into a blank before responding. "You're awake?" The man beside her talked in an unclear voice as he slowly opened his eyes. That pair of bewitching peach blossom eyes had a blurry look, and after a couple of breaths, it slowly became clear. Huang Yueli stared at that pair of eyes, which was exactly the same as his past life, as her lips curled up slightly, not knowing if it was her hallucination. After last night, Li Moying's expression and action seemed even more alike to his past life. You can also listen on. For a moment there, Li Moying had no idea where he was. After a while, he began to recall what happened yesterday, as he agitatedly turned over, pressing Huang Yueli below him. Huang Yueli hastily covered his mouth. Not allowed to kiss. You haven't rinsed your mouth. Li Moying went into a daze before he suddenly laughed. This isn't a dream. Really not in my dreams. The things you told me yesterday. Is it really true? He was a cold and aloof man who seldom smiled. But when he did, that good-looking face seemed to have added a kind of charm, one that could kill instantly. Huang Yueli was crying foul while she pouted her lips in protest. What did I tell you yesterday? What is really true? Regarding your past life's identity, of course it's true. But as for other matters, Li Moying's brows raised as he leaned in close to her. That handsome, bewitching face right in front of her made Huang Yueli twist her body restlessly. Whereas Li Moying intentionally kept his smile, as his voice sunk gloomily. The others are all false? What? What others? Huang Yueli's brain had already turned into a lump of stick glue. Li Moying saw that his influence over her was so huge, as he was extremely complacent, purposely continuing to seduce her. His scorching breath blew past her earlobes. The others, like, the words you said when you like me. Huang Yueli blinked. Did I say that? I've already forgotten. Li Moying thought that this young lass had already been dazed until she lost her soul. But at the crucial timing, she actually reacted in time and reserved the situation. This simply made one felt defeated. He couldn't help but sigh as he placed his forehead against hers. Little lass, you're really an annoying one of a kind. The two of them leaned so closely together, as the combination of their breathes felt so ambiguous. This time, Huang Yueli forgot that Li Moying had not rinsed his mouth, as she became intoxicated in his kisses. It was right after the kissing had completed when she covered her face, jumping up in shock. You really haven't rinsed your mouth. Quickly scram and rinse your mouth. I want to get up. She kicked Li Moying, and she herself jumped down the bed first, looking for water to wash up. Li Moying lazily laid on the bed, looking as her bubbly actions jumping around here and there, as though her little foxtail had been stepped on, as his lips were filled with smiles. To actually criticize me for not rinsing my mouth? Who would rinse their mouths early in the morning when they were being intimate? Forget it. I'm too lazy to talk about this. Sooner or later you'd get accustomed to it. After a fluster, the two of them finally completed their washing up. After having breakfast, Li Moying stood at the bedroom door, watching Huang Yueli arrange his collar. As he was much taller than Huang Yueli, she had to tip up her toes. Li Moying smiled slightly as he leaned downwards. After successfully helping him to tidy up, Huang Yueli satisfactorily patted his shoulder. All right, we could go out now. Li Moying said, my master was looking for me to discuss some matters, and there was still no conclusion yet. I have to head over today. Where are you going? If you're going to tour around the sect, or going to the small town at the foot of the mountain to buy things, I'll let Noamo heir to accompany you. Speaking of this, Huang Yueli seemed to have thought of something as she asked, right, I've heard some people talking about this. Why have you locked Brother Mo up? And what's more, in the water prison. He's very loyal to you. So what offense had he committed? Why did you suddenly drive him away? You can also listen on. He looked at Huang Yueli, whose face was filled with curiosity as she spoke with an indignant tone as she fought for Moyi's. Li Moying immediately asked with a jealous tone, why are you showing concern for other men? I care. Huang Yueli's mouth twitched. I'm concerned about Brother Mo. Isn't it the same as being concerned about you? If he wasn't your shadow guard, why would I bother so much for? I'm just curious. He's been following you around for so many years. Even if he had no merit, he had worked hard, and if it wasn't some major offense, why must you treat him so harshly? Of course he committed a huge offense. When Li Moying recalled the scene when he was deceived to return back to the sect, he felt extremely unhappy. His character was overbearing, and he totally could not take it when others deceived him. not even if it was for his own good. Moreover speaking, because of Mo's lie, it caused him to delay several days from searching for Huang Yueli. That particular timing was the most crucial timing, the best timing to locate a person. Previously, when Huang Yueli had not appeared, Li Moying felt extremely frustrated, and if it wasn't because of those few days of delay, perhaps his little fox might already be safe in his embrace. Luckily, Lier was safe and sound. Otherwise, Li Moying might even chop him up. What exactly did he do? Huang Yueli tugged his hand as she swayed it, interrogating him. When other people saw Li Moying's cold face, they would probably have been scared stiff to even say anything else. But in Huang Yueli's eyes, she felt that this man was just acting pampered and proud. Li Moying unwillingly told her what happened. Huang Yueli's eyeballs rotated as she immediately understood what he was thinking. She gave him a huge hug and said, "I know you're worried about me, so you threw such a huge temper. But am I not all right now? Furthermore, my ability has increased by quite a lot. I feel that this was a blessing in disguise. You better hurry and let Brother Mo out." Speaking of this, Li Moying took a careful look at Huang Yueli and instantly drew in a breath of cold air as he looked at her incredulously. "You're actually at 4th-stage realm peak." Yesterday, he listened to Huang Yueli speak about the matters of their past lives, and the truth had already dealt him with a huge shock, leaving him with no mood to pay attention to any other things. Hence, he hadn't noticed the difference in Huang Yueli's cultivation until now. Right now, he carefully sensed and discovered that his Lier had actually raised another huge realm again, from 3rd-stage realm to 4th-stage realm peak. The last time when he and Huang Yueli split up, she was merely at 3rd-stage realm peak, and until now, it had just been barely 2 months. This simply was a ridiculous speed, which was unheard of, something which even he was far inferior. Huang Yueli smiled complacently as she leaned in close. "How is it? I'm incredible, right?" Li Moying still hadn't regained his senses. "Incredible. Far more than incredible. You're just too scary. I haven't even asked you carefully. How on earth did you manage to escape from Ling Wenbin's hands? What happened later? Why is it that we have not been able to find you for the past 2 months? And by the time you suddenly appear, your cultivation suddenly leveled up so much? What on earth happened?" About this, it's a long story. Huang Yueli naturally had no intention to hide anything from Li Moying, so she told him what happened, leaving Li Moying's mouth agape and dumbstruck. He discovered that his Lier's luck was just too ridiculously good. You can also listen on. Even when she was being pursued, she had actually stepped into the inheritance grounds by mistake, which raised her cultivation by a huge degree. It was said that a practitioner's luck was part of the actual ability, and one of the most important parts, his Lier. It seemed that she had a bright future ahead of her. Just then, Huang Yueli seemed to recall something and smiled. "Oh right, the senior in the inheritance tower also said that if you don't work hard, you can forget about marrying me. No matter how strong your innate talent is, you can only marry into our sacred phoenix race." Li Moying's face turned black. "What, marry into or not? If you really have clansmen and reject our marriage, then I'll not allow them to manipulate me around. I'll just kidnap you away directly." Although he said that, but hearing Huang Yueli talked about all these, an intense feeling of crisis filled his heart. Looked like he needed to put in more effort, not allowing his own fiancée to leave him behind. Otherwise, there might really be a possibility of them lovers being torn apart. This was just too terrifying, all right? Huang Yueli smiled as she blinked her large eyes, looking at him. "All right, if there's really such a day, I'd definitely obediently elope with you. That's my girl." Li Moying gave a deep smile as he gave her a peck on the face. Huang Yueli saw his mood lifting up as she went back to the same topic. "So, can you release Brother Mo now?" When Li Moying heard that, his face sunk and didn't say a word. "Brother Mo is just worried that your body couldn't hold on, so he deceived you. It was also a part of his loyalty. Moreover, aren't I totally fine? You've wasted so much resources on him, and now you just threw him into the water prison. Isn't that letting him taking advantage of you? Quickly let him out." and make him work like an ox or a horse for you. Huang Yueli tried hard to find a huge load of excuses. Li Moying looked at her helplessly as he answered, "All right, since you're so insistent. Then I'll let him out and make him stay beside you to protect you. But if this happens again, even if you help him beg for mercy, it'd be useless." "Dear, you're the greatest." Huang Yueli immediately tipped her toes up and smacked her lips onto his face. Li Moying touched his own face, instantly feeling, as long as his Lier was this happy, don't mention about letting him mow Yi out. Even if he had to break all his principles, there was nothing that mattered. Li Moying asked, "Right? You haven't told me. What are you going to do today?" "Oh, I don't intend to leave the mountain today. I intend to return to the outer disciple residence where I'm staying. When I was in Celestial Light Sect, I've chosen some rough diamonds, and I'm thinking of nurturing them so that they can work for me in the future, so I'm going to check on their situation." "Right? I'm not too satisfied with their factotum. Can you change one for them?" Huang Yueli raised her fair little chin as she looked at him with a face filled with hope. Li Moying pinched her cheek. "Of course, take my token over. No matter which administrator, they will need to listen to your instructions. But why the trouble? Since you've taken them as your subordinates, they can directly follow you into the inner door. Do you want me to directly transfer them over? I know a few elders who I have a good relationship with, and they can take them in as disciples." Huang Yueli immediately shook her head. No need. I think they're not too matured yet and need more training. If they can't even mix around in the outer door, then how will they help me do things in the future? It's better to let them sharpen themselves on the grindstone in the outer door first." Li Moying laughed. "All right, whatever you say. Then head over first. After I finish my matters on hand, I will drop by to fetch you. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli nodded her head and said, "No problem. If you're too busy, then you don't need to come over. I'm not a young child. Surely I won't lose my way, right?" Li Moying broke out into laughter as he leaned in close to her, their noses touching. "Sigh. I'm not worried about you losing your way. I just can't bear to leave you." Huang Yueli's face flushed red. The two of them had finally got ready to leave the courtyard. By now, the sun was already shining brightly in the sky. Li Moying frowned as he looked at the surroundings. Strange, where have him air and the others ran off to? It's already too late, and no one's on duty? Have they all gone to laze around? Huang Yueli couldn't help but laugh and said, "I think it must be because of your lecture last night, so they don't dare to come close to the courtyard within 100 steps." The two of them were just talking on this topic when they heard Air's voice. "Greetings to Master. Greetings to Third Miss. Your subordinate is right here." The two of them turned their heads and looked over and saw all the shadow guards there. And furthermore, there were still two other people beside them. Li Moying didn't know who Fatty Wong and party was, but Huang Yueli had recognized him immediately. However, before she had even expressed anything, Fatty Wong had already rushed over, kneeling in front of Li Moying as he kowtowed with all his might. He was simply too agitated from just meeting the young sect master and unable to suppress himself with one thought in his mind, which was to hurriedly spill the beans about Yi Xiao so that he could show himself in front of young sect master. He finished his kowtow and immediately spoke aloud. "Young sect master, I'm Wang Xiaolong, an outer disciple. I have come here today to report an important matter to you. Yesterday, that little slut who attempted to seduce you is called Yi Xiao. Within our outer door, she is notorious for her misdeed, and her reputation is really down in the dumps, as she goes around seducing men, using men to climb upwards. This time, she had been allocated to a factotum, which is to help you tidy up your courtyard. So she took the opportunity to shamelessly climb up your bed. Young sect master, this subordinate is here to expose Yi Xiao's evil deeds." Li Moying was totally lost by what he heard. He didn't quite understand who was this Yi Xiao that he kept mentioning. It was until he saw Huang Yueli holding in her giggles when he suddenly understood what was going on. Li Moying's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. This fatty really a huge load of courage to actually use such disrespectful words to describe his Lier, and added on so many other accusations for no rhyme or reason based on his own conjecture. What was funniest about this entire thing was he actually still had the cheek to come over and hoot about it. Who did he think Lemoyne was? Humiliating his beloved woman in front of him. Did he treated him as a dead person? Lemoyne's fury was on the verge of exploding. However, Fatty Wong was still clueless about it. It wasn't that he didn't notice Lemoyne's taut jawline and the ugly expression, but he totally didn't consider the fact that Lemoyne was going to get angry at him. On the contrary, he thought that Lemoyne was schemed by the shameless Yi Xiao and was very angry over it, just about to go hack that wretched lass into 8 or 10 pieces. Fatty Wong was still adding oil to fire. Young sect master, you don't know that Yi Xiao is a well-known broken slipper within the outer door, not knowing how many men had already. Suddenly, Fatty Wong gave a heart-rendering, miserable shriek as he fell onto the ground and rolled about in pain. Lemoyne could no longer endure it as his right hand raised up and a bolt of lightning flashed past. The electric current instantly vanished into Fatty Wong's body, running amok within his entire meridians. You can also listen on. The feeling he felt was as if numerous daggers were poking around his meridians continuously, stirring around repeatedly. Not only had it completely shattered his meridians, it even chopped it into small little segments. This kind of pain was unimaginable, already exceeding the limit of what an ordinary person could handle. So Fatty Wong's miserable cries was more mournful than before. Whoever who had heard his cries couldn't help but felt their hearts trembling. They were so frightened that they were sweating profusely. Among them, the most terrified person was Administrator Chun. He saw Fatty Wong's miserable state, and his legs immediately softened, unable to hold him up further as he knelt onto the ground, his entire body trembling nonstop. This scene simply made one utterly shocked. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that something like this would happen. Earlier, he and Fatty Wong were still walking delightfully, feeling that they would be able to show their faces in front of young sect master, and they even imagined their future days where they had a beautiful and bountiful future. Alas, whoever knew that young sect master would be so vicious, not even saying anything, and he had already made Fatty Wong into a state where he was not allowed to live, but couldn't die. Where? Had they gone wrong? This was totally different from what they had imagined. Administrator Chen shivered as he raised his head, looking at Lemoyne's gloomy, handsome face, and with his peripheral view, he glanced upon the young lady in his arms. Just one look, and he was so shocked that he totally went stiff. The young lady which young sect master was hugging, the clothes on her, was exactly what Yi Xiao, that wretched lass, was wearing yesterday, because all the outer disciples' uniform had a marking, so he wouldn't have recognized wrongly. But when Administrator Chen's sight shifted towards that young lady, he was filled with puzzlement. No, this was not Yi Xiao. This young lady had exceptional looks, lovely and neat. She was a peerless beauty who would made anyone fell in love with her at first sight. Even if she stood beside Lemoyne, her beauty hadn't faded. On the contrary, it made one felt that this was a pair of extremely compatible lovers. Since when was Yi Xiao that pretty? But her clothes were exactly what Yi Xiao was wearing. Just at this moment, Huang Yueli smiled slightly as she said, "Moying, you really have no patience. You haven't even heard what he had to say and just punished him directly." Lemoyne replied in a bad mood. "What's there to listen to what that dumb ass had to say? The Yi Xiao he was talking about is you, isn't it? He had already described you to such a vile state, and I still have to let him continue speaking? If I listen anymore, I'd throw up. And you could actually tolerate all these? It simply disgusts me to death." Mo Air, quickly drag this rubbish away and chop him into fertilizer for the flowers. Elder Chu mentioned a few times already that the soil in West Mountain's medicinal farm isn't rich enough, so just nice that you can give him a hand. Mo Air hurriedly responded, "Yes," as he went up to catch his target. Lemoyne then noticed the shivering Administrator Chan by the side of his feet, as he asked, "Wait, then why has this fellow come over for?" Huang Yueli couldn't help but laugh. This probably is Fatty Wong's accomplice. I met him yesterday. He is the administrator responsible for us. Mo Air quickly added, Third Miss is right. He had admitted himself that he is Third Miss Group of Outer Disciples Administrator, and he is also Fatty Wong's uncle. When a few of us happened to pass by earlier, we heard his discussing with that fatty that they had intentionally arranged for Third Miss to come and tidy up your courtyard. The motive was for her to contravene Master's taboo and be punished by Master. In the end, they outsmarted themselves. This subordinate believes that even in his dreams, he had not been able to imagine that Third Miss and Master have this kind of relationship. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli smiled as she shook her head. Administrator Chun, actually, I feel that the both of you are pretty clever with strategies, but why didn't you use it on orthodox methods? You're bound to meet with ghosts if you keep going out at night. Today's consequences, you can only blame yourselves for it. Administrator Chun had already become stiff on the ground, as his brain kept humming, while his entire body shook violently, totally unable to stop. From the few people's conversations earlier, he finally understood the truth to this. But the truth was too ridiculous, totally unacceptable, simply something which he couldn't have imagined even in his wildest dreams. This exceptional, beautiful young lady was actually really Yi Xiao, and her voice was the same as Yi Xiao. Furthermore, she had personally admitted her own identity. But this Yi Xiao and young sect master were obviously acquainted, and from the current looks of it, they seemed to be a couple. Just seeing young sect master placing his hand on her waist, tightly hugging her with possessiveness, and that gentle expression while speaking to her, every single bit, revealed totally just how much Li Moying valued this young lady by his side. Even Murong Fei wasn't able to win a smile from Li Moying, but towards Huang Yueli, he had maintained his tender affections. If it wasn't for the fact that there was no one who could impersonate this extremely handsome face, Administrator Chun might have thought that he had recognized the wrong person. This was that cool, emotionless young sect masterly. This was simply a Casanova. But why was this? How did it turn out like this? Why would young sect master like this Yi Xiao? And why was he together with her? Didn't they all said? Eldest Miss Murong was young sect master's fiancée? Administrator Chin's mind was filled with questions, but alas, no one could reply him, and he would never get the change to find out the answer forever. Li Moying swept him a cold glance as he said, Enough, stop the crap. Since this fellow is an accomplice with that fatty guy, then just drag him down to become a fertilizer as well. This amount should be enough, so Elder Chi should have nothing more to complain about. Mo Air responded, but didn't immediately drag them away. Instead, he faced Huang Yueli and said, Third Miss, this fellow said earlier that if young sect master took interest in you, he would eat sh*t. Hearing that, Huang Yueli's eyes lit up. That's such a thing? There's actually someone who enjoys eating sh*t. So mystical, such heavy taste. I hadn't even seen it before. Mo Air continued, I feel that, as a person, one must keep their words. Since they've already said that, then we should satisfy his craving. Isn't that so? Quick, 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 make him do it right now. Huang Yueli was motivated by a desire to see the world in chaos, as she replied excitedly. Mo Air stole a glance at Li Moying apprehensively, and in the end, Li Moying stared right back at him. Huang Yueli turned her head and took a look at Li Moying, but toward his own little fox, Li Moying didn't dare to stare at her. So he hurriedly took her into his embrace, as he coaxed her softly. All right, Lear, I know you don't want to let off those people who schemed you before, but let's not watch them do that. It's simply too disgusting and will dirty your eyes. Let Mo Air stay here and feed him. Let's go. Huang Yueli felt that it was a great pity, because she really was rather interested to see it. Towards marvels which she hadn't seen before, she always had a huge curiosity towards it. But considering that she had just reconciled with Li Moying, she had the duty to maintain her beautiful image in front of him and not casually expose the other face of her foul interests. You can also listen on. After hesitating for a moment, she replied, All right, I have to trouble Brother Emo Air then. Emo Air revealed a strange smile as he patted his chest, assuring her, Third Miss, don't worry. Count on me for this matter. I guarantee that he will have a full and good meal. Furthermore, regarding the ingredients that we're talking about, there are some instant ones right here. Mo Air used his chin to point, and Huang Yuli turned around to take a look to discover that Fatty Wong had, under the intense and infinite torture, he had already lost control of his bowels, and underneath him were his excrements, looking extremely disgusting, with a faint whiff of disgusting smell floating over. Huang Yuli immediately lost interest, as she quickly covered her nose and said, all right, leaving this place to you, I'm very assured. Moing, let's go quickly. Li Moing nodded, as he held her shoulder and walked out. Walking halfway, Li Moing suddenly stopped in his tracks, as he turned back. Mo Air, after you have completed what Third Miss has instructed, go release Mo E. In future, he will follow Third Miss around. Third Miss has a few subordinates under her, so ask him to train them. Mo Air was dazed momentarily, but following that his expression went wild from joy. All of them shadow guards were very clear that what Li Moing couldn't stand the most were people who betrayed him. So even though everyone were glad that he didn't went to the extent of killing Mo.E., but they also didn't think that Mo.E. would be released with a short span of time. Now, Mo.E. actually regained his freedom so soon? Anyone could guess that this absolutely wasn't due to a change in Li Moing's character. There was a 90% possibility that Huang Yuli had been pleading on Mo.E.'s behalf in front of Li Moing, because Li Moing could ignore the whole world, but he absolutely cannot reject his leader's request. All the shadow guards looked towards Huang Yuli with a venerated gaze, as their hearts were filled with gratitude and deeply touched. Third Miss was so beautiful, so powerful, and so kind and understanding, even pleading for them shadow guards. With her around, even young Sect Master had turned humane. Looked like, in future they must serve Third Miss even more diligently, hoping she and Master would live in eternal bliss and not quarrel. As long as she's around, everyone would peaceful days ahead of them. If she's not around. Thinking of Li Moing, who had been in a rage recently, all of them started to shudder. Li Moing sent Huang Yuli to the outer disciples' courtyard, and reluctantly pestered her for a kiss before he finally turned around, heading to Murongda's side. Huang Yuli had returned to the residence, keeping a low profile, and was not surprised to find out that the courtyard where the Celestial Light Academy students stayed in was totally empty, without a single person, as they had all been distributed to manual, exhausting factotums. So although it was already lunchtime, but not one of them had returned. Huang Yuli spun around in the room and packed a few items, preparing to look for someone to change a factotum for Su Qingwei and the rest. However, when she had just stepped out of the courtyard's gate, she was stopped by someone. You? Who are you? Why have you walked out from that courtyard? I don't think I've seen you around. A shocked voice rang. Huang Yuli's footsteps halted as she saw a few outer disciples heading back together from the outside, and on seeing her, they put on a righteous indignation expression as they berated her loudly. Who are you? What are you trying to do? Huang Yuli blinked and suddenly realized that she forgot to put on her disguise, so these people didn't recognize her. For the first time in her life, she had been treated as a thief. You can also listen on. In order to avoid unnecessary troubles, she hurriedly explained, You all have mistaken. I'm not here to steal things. I am Yi Shao. What? You say you are Yi Shao? Someone looked at her from head to toe, as her eyes were filled with suspicion. Do you think I've never seen Yi Shao before? I'm even more sure than you on what she looks like. She's just merely an ordinary female disciple, with ordinary looks, unlike you, so pretty and flirtatious. One look, and I know that you're a vixen. Isn't that so? That Yi Shao looks very ugly. Her nose is so flat, and her mouth is so big. That face looks exactly like a pork chop, super ugly. Although her potential is rather strong, and her cultivation is very high, but just based on her looks, she could forget about getting married. That's right, being so ugly. What right is she to fight over the job with us? What right can she enter young sect master's courtyard? The few female disciples shot out all words of disdain, as their hearts were filled with envy and hatred totally. Originally, Huang Yueli had disguised herself into Yi Xiao. Her potential was actually that strong, and had long surpassed ordinary outer disciples, which was already very eye-catching. Although a lot of people felt jealous, but they didn't dare to say it out. But later on, she actually got the beautiful task of going to young sect master's courtyard to clean up that actually poked a hole in the beehive. Young sect master Li Moying was the idol which everyone in Celestial Light sect adored, which female disciple didn't have feelings for the handsome and powerful young sect master. Many of them tried their best and wanted to go to Li Moying's courtyard. Not just cleaning up, even if it was a serving maid to help test medication, as long as they could see Li Moying, everyone was all willing to do so. However, such a beautiful task was actually snatched by Yi Xiao. This time round, everyone's jealous towards her had reached a maximum point, as they totally had no way to hide it, so directly speaking it out in public. Huang Yueli only took a glance at them, and knew what were in their minds, and, at the same time, she was rather speechless. Surely, she didn't make Yi Xiao ugly when she disguised herself as her right? Even though she wasn't some ravishing beauty, but she was considered as a graceful and neat young lady, and at least presentable. Now, she was smeared black by these people to this extent? From this incident, one could tell how malicious Administrator Chen's move was. If Huang Yueli really didn't know Li Moying, then even if her luck was really good, and had not been punished by Li Moying, when she came back, she'd also drown in everyone's jealous saliva. Her future days in Celestial Light sect would not be peaceful anymore. Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards chillingly, as she couldn't be bothered to haggle with these ignorant ladies and wanted to leave. But just at this moment, a figure rushed back hurriedly, and lifting his head, he went into a daze as he always shrieked out, "Bairuoli, why are you here?" The person who said that was Yuan Ziyu, who had just rushed back to have lunch. Huang Yueli nodded her head towards him and said, "Senior brother Yuan, it's been a long time since we've last met." When she was still in Celestial Light Academy, she had some unpleasant quarrels with Yuan Ziyu previously. But after she came to Celestial Light sect, she discovered that Yuan Ziyu was rather reliable, totally different from what she had thought of him before. Ever since Yuan Ziyu had stood out when Fatty Wong provoked them, her impression of Hai changed, and so her attitude towards him was considered not bad. Yuan Ziyu seemed rather puzzled, because he had always felt that Huang Yueli gave him a strange feeling but was unable to piece out what was wrong. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli smiled at him and said, "I've been staying here for the past few days. It's just that you didn't discover that it was me only." Hearing that, a light bulb in Yuan Ziyu's head lit up as he cried out in shock, You're Yi Xiao?" Huang Yueli nodded her head. "That's right. No, how would you be Yi Xiao? I've known junior sister Yi for quite a while. Although the things she said and did over the last 2 days indeed weren't the same as before, but she still looks exactly like the original junior sister Yi. If it wasn't for this, Huang Yueli's abnormal ways would have caused everyone to be suspicious long ago." Huang Yueli laughed. "Senior brother Yuan, don't you know about the art of disguise?" Yuan Ziyu's eyes widened as he looked at her. "This, of course, I've heard about the art of disguise, but aren't the number of people who knows how to do disguises extremely little? How could you possibly know? Furthermore, your art of disguise is simply too incredible. There's no flaw at all." Huang Yueli replied, "I just happened to learn a little previously. My disguise actually has a lot of flaws. Only you and junior sister Yi aren't that close, so there are some details which you might have overlooked." Huang Yueli spoke briefly about it, sounding very humble, but Yuan Ziyu was still extremely shocked. He wasn't silly, so naturally he wouldn't think that the art of disguise was so simple, even though Huang Yueli spoke of it so lightly. This was totally different from ordinary makeup tactics. In order to conceal one's identity in front of other practitioners, just changing the features on one's face wasn't much use, because other practitioners knew her well, so they could use their profound energy to sense. In order to befuddle the other party, Not only does the exterior look need to look remarkably true to life, one must use a certain skill to confuse other senses, and that was an extremely high-level, profound skill. Yuan Ziyu was stunned for quite a bit before he gained his senses and asked, "Junior Sister Bai, you'd actually been hiding in Celestial Light's sect secretly. Do you know that?" Speaking of this, he lowered his voice. "Do you know that young sect master had been searching for you for a long, long time, and from his looks, he seemed to be anxious that he's almost going crazy." Huang Yueli nodded and replied, "I know. I just returned from his side. You all should know the matter where I was pursued by Ling Wenbin. So later on I was stuck in a mystic region and couldn't get out, hence there was quite a bit of delay. When I got out, I hurried over to Celestial Light's sect, in order not to cause any unnecessary trouble, so I disguised myself." Yuan Ziyu then realized what happened. "So it's like this." Young sect master can finally rest his heart. His look towards Huang Yueli seemed slightly complicated. Once, he had also the intentions to woo Huang Yueli. In the end, while this though was still in the infant stage, it had been dashed mercilessly by Li Moying. Later on, he witnessed Huang Yueli's cultivation and innate talent, as well as her outstanding armament refining potential and innate talent. So he finally could not help but admit that she was someone whom he could not afford claim connections with. Only a man like Li Moying was able to gain her favor. Yuan Ziyu sighed silently. When he suddenly thought of something a few days ago, Administrator Chan was still asking you to tidy up young sect masters' rooms. I guess they must be regretting deep down to their guts by now, right? Wasn't that really outsmarting themselves? Huang Yueli's lips arched upwards, not speaking a single word. But her smile made Yuan Ziyu shivered silently. You can also listen on. From the looks of this, he didn't need to ask, and he already knew that those two were probably goners. Seriously, they could choose to offend anyone. But why did they pick to offend Huang Yueli? Putting aside that overbearing and powerful big demon lord who pampered his wife over the line, just herself alone was so black-bellied and crafty. Dealing with those scum was as simple as merely lifting a finger. The two of them were engaged in a deep conversation, and Huang Yueli didn't mind her own identity being exposed. Anyway, she and Li Moying were considered as being together officially, so there was no need to suppress their volumes. But they hadn't noticed that there were numerous eyes which were focused around them, and many of them pricked up their ears to eavesdrop on what they were saying. Not long later, bursts of disdain were heard. "So, she really is Yi Xiao. I thought she was boasting. How do you know she's really her? Didn't she say that earlier? She used the art of disguise, changing into Yi Xiao's looks to smuggle into our Celestial Light sect. Her motive is actually to look for young sect master." "That's right, I also heard that. Heavens, how could there be such a shameless woman on this earth, using various schemes to stick on to young sect master? As what I was saying, she looks so pretty. How could she bear that ugly look before her disguise? So, it's intentionally done to confuse everyone, so that she can find a chance to seduce young sect master. This is simply too disgusting. Actually, using such an underhanded method, how could it be possible that young sect master actually fell for a trick? Even our eldest young Miss Murong had wishfully wooed young sect master for so many years before he finally relented. Which blade of spring onion is she considered as, not even looking at her own identity? Those few female disciples totally lowered down their voices, as though they were afraid that Huang Yueli couldn't hear them. Huang Yueli's forehead started to wrinkle as she heard that. Yuan Ziyu hurriedly tried to pacify her. "Junior Sister Bai, don't listen to their rubbish talk. How would young sect master possibly be together with the young miss of Murong family? You plainly know how much he values you." Huang Yueli nodded. "I know, I just felt that these few houseflies are quite irritating. Senior brother Yuan, I'm asking you." Before she could finish her question, she heard the nearest female disciple suddenly gasping loudly. "Heavens! Look at that! On Yi Zhao's neck. Those red patches are those love bites? Surely not right? How could she have any love bites? Did she go over to young sect master's courtyard yesterday night? could it be? Hearing that, Yuan Ziu's vision shot directly toward her neck, as he suffered a big blow as he looked at her startled. Following that, a sliver of helplessness flowed in his eyes as he silently shook his head, even though he knew that this young lady and Li Moying were a couple. But to witness the evidence of their intimacy still made him felt emotionally hurt. Huang Yueli's lips twitched, as she really felt slightly embarrassed right now. She silently cursed Li Moying, that beast in her heart. He was really born in the year of the dog, nibbling around his neck yesterday. Did he think that she was a piece of bone? Didn't he even consider how she was going to meet other people today? Luckily, she had also bitten him back yesterday. But those female disciples, after finding out such an explosive gossip, they started to ridicule her even more without restraint. To even have love bites, looks like she really did go seduce young sect master yesterday. She definitely had climbed onto young sect master's bed directly. So what about that? Even if she does have some good looks, but how would young sect master be so superficial? He's merely just playing around with her. You can also listen on. That's right. Young sect master is definitely just playing around with her. Since she had offered herself, it'd be a waste not to take it. So after he's sick and tired of her, he'd dump her. Correct. By then, let's see how complacent she can get. To actually show off with the love bites which young sect master had given. Wait till she gets dumped. She could just go and cry by herself. The few female disciples stared deeply at Huang Yueli's neck. That gaze was just like a knife, as they felt extremely sour. Young sect master was well known for his aloofness and conceitedness, totally not giving a damn towards woman. How could he possibly be seduced by this young lady, even leaving love bites on her neck? Although the gossip regarding Morong Fei and Li Moying were bubbling hot, there were quite a number of people who were jealous of Morong Fei. Even one knew that Li Moying's character was so cold. Even if he did marry Morong Fei, it would be because of Celestial Light sect master's position. If Morong Fei were to marry him, wouldn't it be equivalent to a living widow? But now they saw Huang Yueli, they had a totally different feeling. How could Li Moying possibly have done anything toward her? The number of exceptionally beautiful women who tried to seduce Li Moying were not just one or two, but so far no one had managed to get their way. What charm did this vixen had? To actually made young sect master's interest perked up? Even though those people had convinced themselves that Li Moying was just fooling around with her, but in their hearts, it was filled with various emotions such as envy, jealousy, and hatred. Huang Yueli's lips curled into a chilly smile as she slowly turned around. As she had just reconciled with Li Moying, her mood was very good today and couldn't be bothered to haggle with these ignorant young lasses. But they continued to climb all over. Did they think that she had a good temper? Huang Yueli bluntly brushed away her long hair which was covering up her neck as she generously revealed the love bites. Why? Feeling jealous from seeing these? You all haven't even seen Li Moying directly, and you place yourself in the position of his wife or concubines. Guess what he would do if he heard all these things that you all are saying? The female disciples all cowered when they heard what she said. If these words were heard by Li Moying, then there was no need to think before they knew how horrendous the consequences would be. But looking at Huang Yueli's gorgeous face and her look radiating with happiness, it was obvious that it was the look of being soaked in blessing. So the few of them couldn't suppress the jealousy they had in their hearts. Yi Xiao, don't be too complacent. Did you think that just spending the night with young sect master, he will come and stand up for you? Haven't you been thrown out to the outer door? That's right. Young sect master is just playing around with you. Did you think you were really his wife? Huang Yueli replied coldly. I really feel like prying open your head to see if all it contains is just glue. Who do the few of you think you are? Do I even need Li Moying to deal with a few of you? Today let me give each of you a lesson, that before you provoke others, firstly consider your own ability and if you are able to handle the other party's revenge. She stepped forward, and the profound energy within her spilled out as the might of a fourth-stage realm practitioner suppressed the entire place. Even Yuan Ziu's face turned white. he hurriedly retreated backwards when he felt that he was about to suffocate. Not to mention those blind female disciples. One of them even spat out a mouthful of blood as she laid onto the ground. The colors on the others' faces also changed. Right now, they finally recalled that this young lady not only had a pretty face. 3 days ago, at this faithful spot, she only used one strike and killed Fatty Wong's 4th-tier magical beast, Ironclaw Silverwolf. That meant to say her actual ability and battle power was equivalent to a 5th-stage realm practitioner. You can also listen on that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.